You're listening to the Favorite Marriage Podcast, a place where you and your spouse can experience God's favor on your forever. Well, hello, welcome friends to another episode of the Favorite Marriage Podcast. We are your co-hosts, Monty and Jeannine Mora, and we're glad you're joining us for another episode today. And we are actually in the summer months here in Colorado,
Yes,
and
we are.
it is a little bit hot here in Colorado.
It is hot. This is where we're dreaming about Alaska right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know what area of the country or the world where you're at right now, but I know here in Colorado, we're hitting the 80s and the 90s, and man, the summer is on, and so is the summer lovin'.
Yes,
it is on.
We've been having fun with summer lovin' this summer break.
Yeah.
For me, it's been a break.
Yeah.
Not so much for you.
Right. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. It's okay. Some people gotta work. Yeah, so we started this brand new mini series episode for the summer called Summer Lovin', and we launched it last week. And so we are in our second episode of this mini series. And the basic goal for this series over the summer was we wanted you as a couple to experience the fullness of what summer brings. But most of all, how do you deepen your love and how do you deepen your connection together as a married couple? So that's kind of the angle we're taking this summer.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about a lot of good things last week, the bucket list. I don't know if you wanted to kind of share a recap of that.
Well, if you missed last week, we had some buckets that we put some things we can accomplish this summer. There were some easy ones, some really easy ones, like going out and laying out a blanket and looking up at the stars together and just create a little romantic evening. There were some other ones that were a little more challenging, and we'll let you all come up with your own, and we have some of our own. And so the idea of this is, just giving yourselves some anticipation, some excitement, like, what are we going to pull out of the bucket today? And like I said, some of them are going to be really easy, manageable in one night, and then others you might have to plan a weekend for.
Yeah, we've already been putting items in our bucket for our bucket list.
Yep.
And yeah, it's pretty exciting. So as we're in summer, we're going to be pulling out more of those. And you talked about how maybe you as listeners sharing with us some of your bucket list ideas. So definitely you want to send us those ideas. And
yeah, please do, because we really want to hear what's going on the other side of this camera, right? We want to get into your lives and hear what's happening. And we just want to celebrate with you. So yeah, please share with us. You can share in the comments. You can email us, and we would love to hear what you all are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes these summer months, Monty, can be really busy for families, especially for families who have kids at home and you're just trying to fill the days. So we had two special children over the last couple days. And so I was able to kind of reflect back on all of you parents who have younger children at home. God bless you. Yeah, it's a lot. And we understand, trying to fill the days with something for them to do to keep them entertained, just keeping them where, they're not pulling each other's hair out or driving you all crazy. So we understand the busyness of family. And we just feel like it's so important that in the busyness that we continue to not lose sight and focus of husband and wife and making the time to spend with each other.
Yeah. Well, speaking of spending time with each other, we are going to be getting away this weekend. We got invited to get away and share. I'm going to be sharing this Father's Day at a church up in Denver as a result of, the Favorite Marriage Podcast. And so we get to enter in this weekend to this amazing church ministry. And I get to speak to all the men and the fathers there at the church. And it's going to be a really good time. So that's one way.
We're getting out.
Yeah, we're getting
It's kind of work.
It's a little bit of work, but we're going to try to
blessing.
get together and do something maybe Saturday up in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, plus our kids will meet us up there. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so however summer looks for you, we really would encourage you to still make the time, get away, and invest in each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were thinking through like what do marriages face in the summer months? And we started thinking back in our lives what our summers looked like over the many years of parenting and even now as empty nesters.
Yeah.
And one question that came to us was about sending off children to college. Like how do you do this? It's so hard. And they knew that we have sent 3 of our children off to college, and we've sent them out of the nest. And yeah, it is a difficult time. And so yeah, that's what we're going to tackle today. Again, we want you guys to be
Yes.
sending us questions. We love to tackle these types of questions. We've been married going on, well, we'll be celebrating 29 years this year.
2 to the 9.
Yeah, and God has been with us through some amazing journeys in our lives. So we want to share with you how a married couple can get through this time of releasing your little birds and sending them off.
The little birds. Do you remember the bird's nest outside? One of those summers, was it, when we were sending Janisa off to college, and there were some birds that built a nest, and
Yeah,
they kind of did their thing, then they left, and they didn't even tell us bye.
I know. I was so upset about that. It was like they just came and used our deck and left without saying goodbye.
Yeah. But it was pretty cool. I think it was a pretty cool analogy to experience that.
Yeah.
You know, Jeannine, some couples right now are in that season right now where they are preparing, maybe even right now, they're preparing to send their child off to college now in the fall. Other families right now might be, 2 or 3 years away from that. Or maybe you're hearing today and you're saying, man, we have a kindergarten, but we want to say, listen in, because at some point in your life, you're going to need this information.
Yeah.
And we say that because life happens fast. One day you're taking your child to kindergarten and you're crying as parents, and then the next day you're taking your child off, taking your child to college, and you're waving goodbye, and there's some more tears along that way. So
It happens fast.
it really, really does.
And this actually, Monty, could also apply to parents. Maybe your children are not going off to college. Maybe you're letting them go and they're going to serve in the military, and you're releasing them.
Sure.
And that could be very, very hard, especially in times like these days. You just never know what's going to happen out there, and you're just releasing them in that way. And then also, if you're just moving them out of the house and they've come to a place where they're like, Mom, Dad, thanks, but it's time for me to, spread my wings. So it's just,
Yeah.
I guess this episode is going to hopefully help any parent who's in that stage of letting go
Sure.
and releasing your grip is the devotion that the Lord brought to me with the little birds in the nest and like,
Releasing your grip.
yeah, releasing your grip.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Now I know we were processing this whole thing in the last few days, and we were talking about the emotions that are involved in sending your child off to college. And parents, we can tell you, husband and wife, we can tell you that the emotions, they are a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Not just the emotions of the buildup of the year before, knowing that, hey, I'm sending my child off to college, but then there's the emotion of shopping for them. There's
Yeah.
the emotion of,
Which could be fun.
which can be fun and expensive.
Yep.
But even like there's this emotion of then packing your child up in their car and then taking the drive. Like for us, we drove our children off to college here in Colorado. All of them went to in-state colleges, but the emotions, even taking the drive, then there's the emotion of unpacking and setting up their dorm for them.
Yeah.
And what other emotions are involved?
I think just there's a sense of mourning.
Yeah.
You're mourning just the absence of them in the home and being active in your family. And we went through that 3 different ways, where when we sent off our oldest, Caleb, to college, and he went up north to CSU. It was our first, so it was a definite.
Man.
Yeah, it was a lot of emotion, letting go, releasing, and trusting, which we'll get into in a second. But the trust part. But there was this absence of him in the home. He's been this trailblazer for his younger brother and his younger sister, and then them having to adjust, us having to adjust and make the adjustments. So there was that. And then when our second son went up and joined him a couple years later, that was just like one more absence. And then you had these emotions of feeling like, oh, we only have one more child left in the home, which the boys just like, they tease about how she got so spoiled. But I mean, she was the only one in the home. And so
for
then,
the 4 years of high school. Yeah.
Right. And then, now she just finished 2 years of junior college, and now she's looking to go really, really far away from us, which that in itself, and because she's our daughter, baby girl, and she's going the farthest away than
1,600 miles, Virginia.
Yeah, Liberty University. As of this recording,
Yeah.
that's the plan.
Yeah.
So there's all of those pieces that they can just shift from one day to the next, so like you said, shopping's fun and planning and all of this stuff. And some of you, I've actually seen some parents taking some younger children, like freshmen and sophomores, on some college adventure time,
like
during
tours?
like tours of colleges. I've
That's
seen
right.
that. So you might be starting early, which is actually a good thing.
Very good.
Because what we're going to talk about is preparing your heart.
Sure.
So there's these highs and lows, and so just be ready for them.
Yeah. And be prepared for the emotion of having like this void in your home, like your home is a little bit emptier. And it depends upon how many kids you have as well. But I think one of the things that we learned when we were sending our kids off to college, and especially with the emotional piece, is leaning into the emotion, leaning into the grief, and letting that process kind of play out in your life. And don't try to stuff it. Don't try to hide it. Maybe don't even try to hide it from your kids, but let your kids know, I'm very sad, but I am so glad that you are an adult and we're sending you off. And so I think one of the most important things as a parent during this season, when it comes to the emotion, lean into that a little bit,
right,
and embrace the process, embrace the emotions involved in that.
Right, which kind of leads us into our first point. That was a great segue into our first point of trust. So we're going to talk about 3 trust factors with this releasing the grip and letting go. And the first one was trusting each other as husband and wife. Like this is why we are coming together today to talk about this, is how as a husband and a wife can you support one another through this very huge transition. And that's trusting one another enough to allow each other to have those emotions. I mean, we were very supportive of one another. I mean, there were times where I'd just start crying and weeping. I remember there's a couple of times I'd come down the stairs getting ready for work, and I would just be in tears, and you're like, why are you crying? I don't know. And I think it's just, I had the privilege of walking the same halls as Janisa for her senior year, but it was just like they would come and go, and we were supportive of one another of that. And something else we did was, because your bucket is being emptied, there's this void of their presence in your life, is learning how to fill those voids with other things. And we did that together. For one another. Like doing new hobbies, or, when you knew like it was a hard day, you would take me out and we would just be busy. Right. And so we've done things for one another in that way to help each other fill those voids.
And that was an opportunity, I think, for us to really draw closer together, because we got to not only lean into like our emotions, our feelings, but we got to lean on each other. And we had to remind ourselves that we did a good job. As parents, we did a good job. I know for us, we were thinking, I know at least for me, I was thinking, did we do enough? Like, did we give our children the proper tools and resources, and like the parenting to adulthood idea? Did we give our children enough so that they can be healthy, young, strong decision makers as adults as they go off to college? And we had to remind ourselves that as parents, and of course, faith-based Christian parents, we did enough, and we gave our kids what they needed at that moment, and we had to let them go. And And they ended up doing pretty good,
Yeah.
you know?
So yeah, trusting each other, giving each other space and room to go through these emotions, these
Yeah.
feelings. Also trusting one another to be that support to our kids, knowing, what I need from you and what you needed from me in regards to our children's needs,
Sure.
was also very important.
Yeah.
So just voicing those things like, Monty, like, can you give the boys a call this weekend? Just check up on them, and taking that lead and giving them a call and just checking up on them. Or, hey, Janice's bank account looks a little low, just making those initiations and
Yeah.
talking to each other, because that's just a security
Sure.
for you as a parent, as husband and wife. And when you see each other working in those ways in the background while your kids are away, it also provides security.
It really does. Yeah, it really, really does. And I was thinking, Janine, like, remember the two words we were talking about for our kids was the word roots and wings.
Yeah.
And as parents, when we talk about trusting each other as parents or trusting in each other that we did a good job, we are thinking like we gave our kids roots to grow. Is it roots or ruts?
Our roots.
Roots to
Roots,
grow.
ruts.
Yeah. So we
However you want to say it, honey.
so we gave our children roots to grow and wings to fly. So we have this idea that we gave it's the idea of roots and wings, roots and wings. And every parent, as you're beginning to prepare your child off to college, you have to be thinking, what type of roots did you give your child so they can grow and deepen now as an adult? And what type of wings did you give them so they can fly? Because that's the whole goal of parenting is you want to raise adults. You want to raise a human being for them to become adults so that when they're out of the home, they have some very strong foundations, some roots, they're growing deep and they're really taken off because they learned that at home.
Yeah.
And you've given them some very strong wings so they can fly like an eagle and just soar into their new life, career, whatever the case may be. So roots
Yeah.
and rings was really important for us with them.
Right. I think of the analogy, we might have mentioned this before, with the little, the bird analogy with it when they're in the shell. And if we come in and we interrupt them breaking out of the shell,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can actually weaken their wings, and then they would not be strong enough to fly. And that is super important for when they're breaking out of the shell, to let them break out. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard for them to break out. But if you get in there all the time and trying to fix everything and trying to help them break out in every step of the way, then they're not going to have the muscle built. So in the same way, when your
Good.
child, which leads us to the second point of trusting your child,
Yeah.
trusting your children, trusting that they're going to be strong enough, they're going to break out. And as they break out and spread their wings, they're going to be able to fly,
Sure.
right? Because you've allowed them to experience some of the hard things that are going to come through high school into leading into college, that whole leaving process. I mean, our kids went through some hard times as well. I mean, they were excited to get out of the house, but there was also a lot of emotion in them.
Yeah.
And then just trusting in what you've poured into them. So you're going back to trusting your kids, trusting them enough to know that if they fail, if they fall, and trust me, they will. And there's times you just had to sit back and, dig deep and just trust in your own, the roots of your family, and pray.
Yeah.
Pray, 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 pray. I mean, this is a time in your children's life. I know those of you out there that are praying parents, you've been praying for your baby, probably even before conception. For those of you who have prayed for a child, and then when you conceived and through the pregnancy, all the way from birth till now, you have been praying. And this is where praying comes in, even in a greater capacity. because you can't see them every day and you're not hearing them every day, or you're not able to navigate and help navigate their path every day.
Sure.
But there is a God who loves them far greater than we could ever love them.
Yeah, thank you,
And
Lord.
that is where
Mm-hmm.
we put our trust in God.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
our trust had to come from each other, from, trusting in our children and the way we raise them, trusting that they will, when they fall and, whatever challenges that they face, that they will go back to those deep roots that we've helped to
them.
nurture. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then trusting God with our children
Yeah.
because he loves them more than we could ever.
Yeah. I think trusting in God, the trusting in God piece was really big because it's a walk of faith.
It
And
is.
when you release your kids, there's an element of faith, of a trust in God that he's gonna, number one, provide for them. Number two, he was
right.
going to protect
Yeah.
them from all the different things going on of
So
college
much out
life,
there,
which
yeah.
there's a lot out there, parents, with college life. So that's why you need to give your children a strong foundation because, like my son Caleb said, that the only thing that was being tested in college was his faith. That was the real test besides the test in the classroom. So his
Yeah.
faith was being tested. So we have to trust God to God for protection, for guidance, for Him to give them to make wise decisions, wise choices, and really we had to release and re-release and keep releasing our children to God with each time we had to send them away. So there was a really big trust God factor, and that was really important to us because we're faith-based. We're Christians, and that has played a huge role
It
in
has.
us, in our life, our marriage, our family, our children. And so that piece right there with the Lord has really come alongside and helped us really gain strength from Him in that
Right.
process, and our kids.
Right. And it also came into play when we as parents weren't able to be there for our kids and asking the Lord to grow us.
Sure.
Like we grew in ways like we didn't, had never walked that path, so we didn't understand some of those situations until we hit them like right smack in our face. And I think of the time when Jared was facing some very tough situations on his own, emotional and just wanted to be there for him and hold him and walk him through that. And so as a parent, trusting in God, as a mother, and I'm sure I know you had your own
That's tough.
times of just seeking God on your knees for him during that time, being his intercessor. We grew as parents, just on the other side of being able to be there physically, on the other side of being there spiritually was a whole another level.
Sure.
Because we couldn't be there physically, so we could only be there spiritually. And so that was a huge growth in our faith. And we saw God pull him through. I think all three of them went through some very tough times where you just wanted to go and rescue them.
Yeah.
And there were times when they wanted to come home
Yeah.
and just quit.
Do you remember? I think it was this year. I think we were visiting our daughter. We were watching her play college softball.
Oh, yeah, it was at a softball game.
And she comes up to us and she says, with tears in her eyes, she's like, I want to go home.
I just want to go home. Oh, gosh.
And at that point, you want to just say, okay, get in the car.
Let's
go. But it's at that point where we had to teach her about grit.
Yes.
Staying to her commitment, reminding her why she's there.
Yes.
This college was paying for her to play college softball, paid for her education. And so it was hard, but there were those moments, especially with Janisa, or that one moment where it was like, as a dad, is like, baby girl, just get in the car. Let's go home,
Yeah.
But you can't do that.
Well, it goes back to, Monty, I would like to mention, and how we should support as a parent. Like you really want to be careful to not create a place or a situation or like where you cause your children to want to come home, throw in the towel,
Right.
because you are telling them, oh, I miss you. And, oh, mom's just depressed here on the couch. She's not doing anything. And like, it's very important that you support your student,
Your
your
child.
child, well, who is
Yeah.
the student, to be mentally strong, emotionally strong.
Sure.
And you have a lot of play in that. So
You
be
do.
very careful. I mean, here's the question. Do you want to raise a weak, or not raise, but do you want to, help me out, what's like,
Foster, cultivate.
yeah, there you go. That type of spirit within your child, or do you want to create someone who, like you said, has grit, has that staying power, tenacity to finish and be strong
Yeah.
and accomplish what they started? Because you know that is important.
Sure.
Finishing what you start.
Yeah.
And that's just a characteristic of not just Christ, but of a characteristic that's going to follow them all the days,
Sure.
of their life after college, in their jobs, and
Yeah.
futuristically speaking.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, Jenny, because I was listening to another, I don't know if I was listening or reading about a mom who was sending her child, I think she was a single mom, sending her child off to college. And what she said that she didn't want to do was burden her child with her emotions.
Yes.
And I think that's important. Like, so if a parent is saying to their child a couple weeks before they're sending them off, if they say something like, I don't know how I'm going to make it with you gone, or it's going to just killing me to know that you're leaving me, right? So what you're doing is you're burdening your child with your emotion and your feelings, and some children will really internalize that, and they'll feel very bad because they feel like they're leaving you and abandoning you. So you don't want to burden your child with your feelings,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you definitely want to let your child know, yes, I'm a little sad, but
Of
I'm
course.
so stinking proud of you. I am so glad that you're making this next step. And it's more of a high level emotional encouragement rather than burdening your child with that,
Yes.
with your emotions and your burdens.
So good. And also communicate with your child. I mean, sit down with them and let them know, like, hey, can you call me? Like, can we make this agreement to call 3 times a week? That I know some parents get a phone call every day, once a week. You talk that out with your child. You guys come to an agreement and stick to that. Be faithful to it. Write each other. I mean, I know gone are the days of letters and stamps, but you don't know, when we sent care packages to the kids, I mean, it was something they really look forward to. So mailing something when they get mail, and just make those commitments with one another so that it's easier on you when they do leave.
Yeah. I think a couple other ways you can stay connected to your child while they're in college besides letter writing, care packages, scheduling a time where you can FaceTime.
Oh, that's
I know
so
we've
amazing.
we love that when
Thank
we
God
can
for FaceTime.
see their face and talk with them. And then I think even to this day, we have a Mora Snapchat group. And I think we began that, when our kids went off to college, where even through Snapchat, for me, I'm not a Snapchatter guy or a big social media guy or apps guy, but I had to learn as a dad. And man, I love Snapchat. I love to see the engagement of our kids. And so those are some cool ways that you can stay engaged with your child at college, and at the same time don't burden them to where you're calling them when they're in class and you're just blowing up their phone and FaceTime me, and you got to really have those boundaries in line because you don't want to push your kids away from you. You want to draw your kids in to stay connected with you. And so those are some ways where you have to communicate with your child. Hey, what's a good healthy communication in the week that we can have so we can stay connected with each other?
And there's those apps for peace of mind as well. If your child will let you have like Life 360 where you can see them and and just be able to have peace of mind. And our kids weren't too fond of that, but that was when we really had to just trust the Lord, and God has Life 360.
Yeah, right.
So but
So before we wrap up our time today, I want to ask you, Jeannine. And this is going to be good for the moms.
Okay.
Okay. So how long did it take? So once we sent Caleb off to college, our firstborn, how long did it take you emotionally to feel a sense of a new normalcy with him being gone now? What was that timeline for you?
Gosh, I don't know if I could put a timeline on something like that. I think when you say new normal, a new
Yeah,
normal,
it is.
because like a lot of parents will be like, how will I ever feel like the same way? Will it ever be the same?
Sure.
And I'm sorry to say that it probably will never be the same. None of our kids so far have come back home when they left. And for me, that was a little hard because I thought summertime, his first year away, summertime, he was going to come back home. And actually, Caleb never came back home. He stood with some friends in the summer and then went back. And then
Yeah.
after that, well, I should say he did come back home.
After he graduated,
After
he
he
lived with us
graduated,
for a
he
little
lived with-
while till he got his job.
Yeah, till he got his job and he was preparing for marriage. But by that time, it was a whole lot different. Like we
Yeah.
had the whole leaving of college under our belts. But
But if you could put a timeline on, like
I don't
was it 6
know.
weeks, 8 weeks, where you just kind of felt a new normal with knowing that he's gone now, and you kind of settled into a new normal rhythm as a mom.
I would say at least 6 months into the school year. And it definitely was after football season because he was an avid football player. Like we loved
Oh,
watching him play
yeah.
football. So that first year of being a part of the same high school, because Jared was still a part
Oh,
of
yeah.
the same high school. And then after that season and just knowing like that was really hard. I remember like morning football season. But
Track.
then like after that,
Yeah.
yeah, track too. Yeah. Y'all, it's just gonna you're gonna have to go through all of those first. Like
Yeah.
no more, especially if your kids were in sports. No more football, no more track,
Sure.
no more soccer, and we don't know if there's gonna be any more softball. So yeah, I would say at least 6 months
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
before it just started settling in. Like this is new, this is our new life.
Yeah.
And then we had to go through that when we sent off Jared, and empty nesting, which after we sent off Janisa. So I would
think
say
it's going
give
to be
yourself.
different for each parent, right?
It is.
And it
I
depends
think
upon how
so.
close you are to your children
Yeah.
as well.
And how busy your other children keep you.
Got it.
Is that was what was helpful for us.
Good point. Because if that's the only child, and then you come back to an empty home,
Right.
boy, that could be really, really tough. We didn't experience that until the third child, but glad we had Jared and Janisa to come back home to,
And how far they're going.
and how far. Yeah.
And it all depends.
Yeah.
So here's just something I want to leave with you all for as a mother. I had some difficult times because I was very close to my kids. I had the privilege of being able to stay at home with them and raise them until they were like in high school.
High school.
And then God blessed me with the ability to be able to be a teacher in their high school. So it was really hard. But here's the thing that kept me from getting in the way is I did not ever want to get in the way of the plan that God had for them. And that's what kept me just release. I mean, that's what helped me release my grip and from reaching back and try to pulling them back in is not getting in the way of what God has for them.
Sure. Yeah. That's beautiful. And you did a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
As a
You were a
mama.
great support.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Well, we better wrap this
Yeah,
up.
let's wrap this
We
up.
can talk about this topic, so many different angles and tell so many different stories.
Yeah, we might revisit this topic later on in the future, but we definitely wanted to remind couples that as you're entering your summer loving time, part of that summer loving is a releasing of a child to college or moving out of the house. But the reality is when that happens, Jeannine, this is a time and a moment for a husband and wife to really draw closer together,
Yeah.
not farther apart, and really lean in and lean on each other
Yes.
and find a way for your for your love in the summer to deepen as a married couple. And so hopefully this content, this episode was helpful for you.
Yeah.
Again, if you have any questions about the idea of sending your kids off to college, we're not experts, but we've done it 3 times. And obviously, we cannot take an entire episode to talk about everything. So by all means, send us some thoughts, some ideas, some questions you might have. And we would love to journey with you as parents as you send your child off to college.
Yep.
And so,
Because remember, after they're gone, it's back to just you and your spouse.
yeah, right. And that gets tested as well.
Yeah.
Like always, we pray as a married couple that you would experience God's favor
On your forever.
Thanks for listening to The Favorite Marriage, where you and your spouse can experience God's favor on your forever. If you enjoy this resource, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time on The Favorite Marriage Podcast.